What is going on, everybody? Drake in here, and welcome back. Today is December 22nd, and that means the holidays are right around the corner. With the holidays comes gift giving and gift receiving, as you all know, and you might have that special Magic player in your life, a good friend, family member, somebody in your playgroup, or you might have a little extra cash left over from the holiday season and you want to buy yourself something nice. So today we are going to go over some of the greatest buys as far as singles go in the month of December 2022. You guys really enjoyed the Double Masters buy guide. You guys enjoyed the Baldur's Gate kind of analysis and buy guide. So I want to kind of follow up with some of those Magic finance videos, so to speak, and singles buy guides. I'm going to try to do one per month to kind of give you guys a little flavor of what's out there and what I think are the singles to buy in that month that are kind of at a good price. They could be at all-time lows. They could be outside of the all-time lows, but just overall, I find that they're the best value for their money. But before we get into it, quick channel pulse check. We're at 412 subscribers, so thank you to everybody who joins in, watches my videos every month, as well as comments on the videos, interacts with me via Discord, hits the subscribe button. You guys are very, very, very appreciated, and without you guys, I wouldn't be making these videos. Be sure to interact with me in my Discord. I'll leave a link in the description. There you can message me in real time if you have any real-time questions outside of the comments in the videos. You can also join my server as well, where we could talk in real time. We have a couple people in there going back and forth on decks and stuff like that. So it's a pretty good time. I like to get that more active. So if you're not in the Discord or you haven't friended me already, be sure to hit me up. And if you would like to purchase any of the cards that we talk about today or any cards in the future, be sure to bookmark and save my TCG Player affiliate link. If you bookmark and save this, any of the cards you order from here going forward, I get a little kickback on that. It goes directly into the channel. That is much appreciated. It doesn't cost you any extra money. All it takes is the 30 seconds to bookmark the link, and you could buy literally anything through TCG Player: gift cards, singles, sealed product, deck boxes, sleeves, you name it. And if you use my link, it all goes back to the channel, and I greatly appreciate it. So starting into the singles here, again, you see Lethal Scheme on the front screen. So how I want to structure this is I want to go through 10 singles that I think are a very good value for the money and are worth the dollars that you put into it, as well as a nice bonus one is number 11. I kind of go over something a little flashy, something outside the norm, maybe something you want to splurge on. So going to the first one here is Lethal Scheme. This is from Commander Streets of New Capenna. This card's about $1 right now. So the reason why I enjoy this card is it is a 4-mana kill spell, essentially. So instant speed, destroy target creature or planeswalker, and then you can connive for each creature that convoked it. And obviously it has convoked. So convoke is you could tap a creature and reduce the mana value by the creature's color or one colorless. So in this case, you would tap black creatures to reduce the black. This is a really interesting card because if you look at other free black kill spells, things like Deadly Rollick, things like Snuff Out, right? Those are free kill spells as well, and obviously on paper they're better than this card, but they're also, you know, I think Snuff Out is $10 right now, as well as Deadly Rollick is, you know, 40, 50 bucks or something in that realm. So this is a really nice budget effective kill spell. And if you're in something like mono black, or if you're even in two colors like blue black, and you want free removal, Lethal Scheme is the way to go. Before I get into things too far, this is not financial advice. These are just cards that I think are worth the money. So these are not investments. These are strictly buying cards from a playability stature, I guess. So strictly playability, not investments. I wouldn't go and buy a million of these cards. You know, you could buy a handful of them for your collection, but I really enjoy Lethal Scheme. This made its way into some of my budget decks. It was in my Yuriko deck. The budget on that got pretty high, so we had to get some tight cuts. But Lethal Scheme just is a slam dunk in all of your black decks through a variety of budgets and power levels. Again, free kill spells are very good, and this kind of fits the build for something like that. If you haven't gotten a copy yet, they are $1 through TCG Direct. If you have the subscription, it's free shipping. So very good buy for $1. You could spend $5, get 5 of these, throw them in all your decks. And Lethal Scheme, all around great. Going into the next one here is Lotus Cobra. So I believe this is the cheapest version out there. There might be something a little bit cheaper, but it's around $3 to $4 right now, depending on where you buy it and conditions and stuff like that. But Lotus Cobra is 1 green and 1, 2/1 with landfall. Add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So Lotus Cobra is one of those cards like a 2-mana dork, but landfall you could add the mana to your mana pool. So this gets really spicy, obviously, with things like fetch lands and of that nature. But for $4, you know, I know this card had all-time highs, and this is just the Zendikar Rising version, but I know prior to the reprint, this card was a bit expensive, but this is kind of turned, at least for me, this card is turned into a budget all-star. I have like a budgety Yarok deck that this goes in. I have a budget Landfall Obun deck that's just kind of fun, big, smashy land things. So this is a slam dunk for all of your budget brews. At $4, it's not breaking the bank. It could add, you know, upwards of 2, 3, 4 mana per turn, depending on what you're doing. We have a lot of budget fetch lands out there now as well. You got your Terramorphic Expanse, your Fabled Passage, all of those that could proc this multiple times. If you're playing something like Yarok, it procs multiple times on its own, and then if you did have something like a fetch land, you're triggering it 4 times. This card is really good in a vacuum because it just propels you so far ahead. If you play this on turn 2, on turn 3 with the fetch land, you're ramping yourself an additional 2 mana, and it just kind of gets out of control from there. So I like Lotus Cobra. It has a lot of homes, and even if you don't have any synergies around it, it's just an overall solid pick. So Lotus Cobra between $3 and $4 is a great buy at this time. The third card, and we kind of cheated on this, we have a cycle of cards. We have the Tri-Lands from Streets of New Capenna. So obviously we all know why these are good. We've seen the Ikoria ones kind of blow up, but these are Tri-Lands that have land types, and they also cycle. There's not too much to talk about in terms of power level, right? Again, the land types mean they're fetchable. If they're dead late game, you can cycle them. And they're just kind of, I believe, I don't think they've ever gone lower than this. They could be at all-time lows right now. Let's take a look at the history. I mean, it's pretty close to an all-time low, but when you're looking at, you know, some of these, even the showcase versions, just, you know, between $5 to $6, you can scoop up a cycle of these and, you know, pay $25, $30 probably after shipping and taxes, and just have a cycle of Tri-Lands for your collection. You know, even if you're not going to use them, stick them in a binder somewhere. But these aren't going to get any cheaper. I believe these will kind of slowly rise in value like the Ikoria ones. They're hard to reprint, right? Being that they are themed to the Capenna plane and storyline, it's really hard to fit these into reprint sets. I can maybe see these making their way into like other Commander precons down the line, but these are a buy that if you're looking for a way to power up your deck as far as real estate and land goes, this is definitely the way to go. Again, they're very difficult to reprint just because they are themed, right? It is themed around Ziator's Proving Ground, who is, you know, strictly dedicated to the lore and the plane of Capenna. Xander, same thing as well. So, and when you're looking at these and you're really looking to power up your deck, the way you can do that very quickly is condensing the land base to be as efficient as possible. If you're playing a 3-color deck, you definitely want to have all your colors available to you at all times, and that's where these slot in. Now, if you're playing a 1-color or 2-color deck, that's where you want to have more utility lands and things of that nature. But, you know, I play these even in my 5-color decks, and I have 3-color decks that play them. But, again, for the price, you're talking $30 or less just to cash in on a set of these is very, very cool. And if you want to splurge, they have the cool borderless treatments, but these base models and these showcases are very, very cheap right now. Card number 4, we have Diabolic Intent, which just got reprinted in the Brothers War. So if you're looking at Diabolic Intent, it is 1 black and 1, sack a creature as additional cost to cast the spell, and you grab any card from your deck and add it to your hand. Sounds familiar, and that's because it is. It's basically Diabolic Tutor with a little bit of an extra condition on it. So the reason why I like this card is Diabolic Tutor kind of prices a lot of people out. I believe it's $40-ish right now. So this is Diabolic Tutor with a little bit of an extra condition. You can have 0 like Saki Aristocrat style strategy in your deck, and it's still just being also like a very powerful card. Once you add the sacrificing synergies, the Aristocrat strategy, and things of that, it puts this card over the top, and in some cases, you know, obviously with the right sequence of cards, can even be better than something like Demonic Tutor because you can trigger multiple things, multiple synergies. But at the price of, you can get a foil one here through direct at $864, $680 plus $1 shipping. We'll call it $7-8. I scooped up several of these. I think a couple weeks after release, I scooped up like 3 of them. I would love to have more. One thing, if you kind of can't tell by this video, I do have my powerful and optimized decks, and that's a very small portion of my collection. Most of my decks aren't super optimized. They have some sort of restriction or have some sort of budget. And I love to be able to find cards like this and really toss them in the deck and kind of have the strength of some of the of some more powerful decks, but just condensed into a little bit of a different strategy. So being that this is under 10 bucks, you know, if you're in a $200 budget range for a deck, slots in very nicely. And we all love tutors. It does help the consistency and the power level of our decks. And this is as low as it's ever been. There's a lot of different versions of this now. You have your base version, you have your stamped version, your promo version, even the Battle Bond one if you wanted to get a little nifty artwork, something that was a little different. It's only 10 bucks. And then you have your cool masterpiece one. But Diabolic Tutor is a tutor, a little bit of an extra condition to it. But if you can capitalize on this, this is a 10 out of 10. Would recommend. Even with 0 synergies as far as sacking creatures in your deck, as long as you are a creature-based deck and have creatures, it's going to perform like Demonic Tutor a good amount of the time. Next on the list, we have Assassin's Trophy. So you could also loop in... there is the black, white, and 1 that exiles something. Anguish Unmaking. You could loop them in the same category as well. These are both pretty cheap right now. I think it's some of the cheapest they've ever been. But this is a $5 price point. 1 black and 1. Destroy target permanent, and the controller searches their library for a basic land. So the reason why I enjoy this card is it's a universal catch-all, destroy something for 2 mana. Obviously instant speed, but very, very strong. Anything in green and black, you should probably be playing this as one of your removal spells. At the very floor of it, you can kill a utility land or a power land, like a Gaia's Cradle, and give them a basic. You can kill enchantments, artifacts, creatures, you name it. It is a catch-all for only 2 mana, and them getting a basic land is kind of, you know, academic at that point. It doesn't really matter. Same thing that goes with Anguish Unmaking. You can't hit lands, and it does cost 1 more mana, but it exiles. So it's a catch-all on the Perforos end of things. It gets rid of indestructible stuff. So both of these lumped together, I actually think Anguish Unmaking is a bit cheaper right now. But Assassin's Trophy, 6 on direct. You can get a beat-up one for $4. Get a mod play foil for about $5. But if you just want a near mint copy, you're looking at $6. You know, if you have like an extra 20 bucks rolling around, you could buy 3 of these, toss them in all your Golgari decks. Overall, just some of the lowest prices these cards have ever been. This is a double Masters card. A lot of these double Masters cards, especially as we kind of go through things, I think there's a couple on here overall. You'll just see a lot of these prices have bottomed out or very close to bottomed out. And Assassin's Trophy, it's $5, $6 right now. That's a card that I have paid $15 for, and I don't regret it. Yeah, it's cheaper now, but at $15, it's still a powerful card. The next card on my list, and I actually hinted at this in my Dragon deck when I did my Dragon update, is Kindred Discovery. This got reprinted in Baldur's Gate. It is a 5 mana enchantment, 1 blue or 2 blue and 3. When it enters, choose a creature type, and whenever a creature you control enters or attacks of that type, you draw a card. So it's a 5 mana draw spell. It does require a lot of creature and tribal synergies to get going, but this card is nuts. You could play 3 creatures and then attack with 3 creatures, and you've successfully drawn 6 cards that turn. It gets out of control. This is something that slots itself into my Dragon deck. It's in my Sliver deck. It's basically in all my tribal decks. And at the price point, you know, for under $6, you can get a nifty foil. For $5.23, you can get a near mint one here. And you can just go down the list. And this is along the lines of the Lotus Cobra. You know, this is it's able to be slotted into your budgety or your, you know, just not as optimized tribal decks. But this card was 40, 35, 40, 45 bucks for the longest time. So it priced itself out of a lot of situations and a lot of decks. Now we're in a situation that all of my budget tribal decks, if they play blue, I can play this card. And it's a very strong card. 5 mana is a little bit more than I would want to pay for a draw spell at times, but it is something that you can reap the benefits from in multitude very easy, being that it is on enter the battlefield and attacks. I actually tried to cut this from my Dragon deck, and I put it back in just because I feel like I needed it. But again, I'll say it a couple times, but I don't have, you know, 20 completely optimized decks. I have, you know, 4 or 5, 100% power level optimized decks, you know, that are going to go balls to the wall every time. And the rest of my decks are kind of in that $100 to $400 range where I want to build on a budget. I want to build with restrictions, and these cards like this are slam dunks, and I'm so glad this got reprinted. So again, as we go through some of these cards, the reason why I'm highlighting these is just a lot of people don't really know that the cards are just so cheap now. And I could see this card going up as well. I think if you look at its price trend, it is a bit up and down, but it looks like it's on the higher end of things at times now. And I don't see it going below $5, especially for the foreseeable future. I know Baldur's Gate in particular wasn't super accepted, and I know Amazon ran a flash sale for the boxes, but I don't think they're going to do it again. So kind of what's out there now is going to be what's out there. So again, that's a good buy right now. Plaza of Heroes, a little bit of a newer card, but it's something that I tested out a little bit, and I thought it was really cool. It wasn't the best in my Dragon deck. I would have to change some things around to optimize it, but it does have its homes. This is a really solid card. It was a bit overhyped when it came out as kind of a new land staple. It's definitely not that, but it does have its home. And if you know anything about me, you guys know I love lands, and I love lands that do things besides tap for mana. And this falls in that category. So Plaza of Heroes, tap to add a colorless, and then you could tap it to add a mana of any color if you're using it to cast a legendary. And you could add 1 mana of any color among legendary permanents you control. And then, kind of as like a panic button, you could tap it in 3 to exile it, and target creature gets hexproof and indestructible. So it's a land with 4 different lines of text, so it's hard for it to kind of just be bad. It's basically, in the right decks, it's a rainbow land. It's going to cast the majority of your spells with any color. And if it can't tap for any color, it can always tap for a colorless, which is good. So it's never dead. And then if you're playing some sort of a Voltron-y strategy, or your commander's really important with sticking to the board, for 4 mana to be able to give something hexproof and indestructible is strong. I would never pay 4 mana to just give something hexproof and indestructible for 1 turn on a spell, because again, I lose the card, it takes a card out of my hand. But to have that ability printed on your land, it's just free. And if you never use it, you never use it, but it is nice to have it there. And again, it being on land gives it so much value. I really like Plaza of Heroes. I think I only have 2 copies of this. I want to see if it goes a little bit lower before I start buying 3, 4, 5 copies just to throw in a bunch of different decks. But I don't really think it'll go much lower. It could. I know Amazon is running or has ran a flash sale on some of the Dominaria stuff. So obviously, as that stuff gets opened, it could drive down the prices of some of these Dominaria cards a little bit. But again, $5 to $6. It is a good utility land to have in your decks that are going to. This will cast your commander every time. So if your commander costs between 1 and 4 or 5 mana, you should just probably play it anyway. Because it's always going to be able to cast your commander. Obviously, it can't cast everything, but you build your deck the right way, it's very, very good. So Plaza of Heroes right now is something that was overhyped and then just kind of tanked to the bottom because it didn't live up to the hype, but that doesn't mean it's a bad card at all. So next we have a pet card of mine. You've seen this in my Dragon deck. It is Steely Resolve. It is 1 green and 1. As it enters, choose a creature type. Creatures of the chosen type cannot be targets of spells or abilities. So it basically gives all your things Shroud. So 2 mana, this thing can come down early, be very efficient for you, and kind of gives immunity to everything that comes into play afterwards. Or as you're setting up a board, you can slap this down and basically forcing your opponents to respond with targeted removal within the given window. And then after it resolves, everything's safe. So it's kind of good at every level of the game. Only costing 2 mana is kind of the sweet point for me here. Now, this card has no other printings. It is from Onslaught, which is very, very old at this point. But as you can see, for a playable copy, you can buy them cheaper. But I like to put things at lightly played or better when we're looking at conditions. Obviously, you can probably pull up a damaged one for only $10. But, I like to look at things in a nicer condition because we want our collection to have some value when we're putting cash into our cards. But $13, $14, $14, $14, $14.34, all the way up to $15. You could find lightly played versions of these. So this just becomes another tribal slam dunk. If you're playing anything in green, from slivers to dragons to elves to really anything. I mean, you know, even if you just want your commander to have Shroud, you can do that as well. But it's an older card. It is not something that's super well known. It can and has had a higher price point at times. Let's look at a year. Yeah, I kind of spiked a little bit to about $20, but even that's not terrible. But it is at a decent price point. Again, if you're getting this for $15 or less, something I would recommend, especially if you're a tribal player like me. I think it's my past in Yu-Gi-Oh! That kind of funnels me into tribal decks. So I love cards like this. And you'll notice, you know, most of the cards we talk about are, you know, between $1 and $5 to $7. But I like to put some somewhat more expensive cards on here. And by expensive, I mean, you know, 20 plus still. Every time we do one of these, there'll be 1 or 2 cards that are a little bit more expensive. But we're going to talk about Mana Drain. Mana Drain, I believe, is the cheapest it's ever been, or very, very close. You can buy a near mint copy from No Limit Gaming for $30 with shipping included right now. So let's take a look at Mana Drain before we go too far into the price. 2 blue, counter target spell. At the beginning of your next main phase, add colorless mana equal to the mana value. So kind of going into the lethal scheme thought process is like free counter spells and free removal are always the best, right? Your Fierce Guardianships, your Deadly Relics, your Force of Wills, Force of Negation, Snuff Outs. If it's free, it's good. This is by far the best counter spell you can play that will cost mana every time. So being that you're going to refund some of that mana on your next turn is kind of what sets it apart. $30 right now. I mean, that's a steal. If you have an extra $30 that you have set aside for Christmas, you want to get a friend, you want to buy yourself something nice, I mean, this is the play right now. $30 is crazy. I believe it's the cheapest it's ever been. Obviously, you see all the printings here. I don't see it going for much lower at times. I'd love to see Mana Drain go to $25. Again, unless it receives another printing, I don't know if that'll happen. So, again, $30 is an absolute steal for Mana Drain right now. I can't believe it. I was thinking that this card would settle at 50 no matter how many printings I had, but it just looks like there's such a density of them in the market because it has been reprinted a lot in the last couple of years. Let's look. So Iconic Masters was, what, 4 years ago-ish, maybe 3. Double Masters 22 just came out. And then Commander Legends came out about a year and a half ago. So, you know, within the last 3 years, you do have 3 printings, which is kind of driving it down. And that doesn't even take in consideration any variants, right? I believe there's more variants of this, too. Yeah, you even have an etched foil, an extended art, and a borderless. So lots of versions is what's keeping the price down. So scoop one up today. Scoop one up today. Next, we have another cycle, and you guys know how I like my lands. These are the Kamigawa Channel lands. So these are probably my favorite pick as far as just overall cards and cycles for the year. So I want to talk about these for a minute. So you have the cycle of 5. You have Boseiju, you have Adawara, you have Takenuma, Aiganjo, and Sokenzan. So essentially, they are all untapped basics. Like, they tap for a color of mana. They're not basics. You can't fetch them. They have no land types, but it is a small price to pay. Basically, they tap to add 1 mana of their respective colors, and then they can channel for some sort of mana, and the mana is reduced if you have X amount of legendary creatures. So let's talk about Boseiju here. Taps to add a green. You can channel it and discard Boseiju to destroy, I believe it's like target artifact, enchantment, or non-basic. And then they get a land type from their deck. Adawara is tap for a blue, and then discard it, channel it, and bounce a permanent. Takenuma mills 3 and puts a creature card to your hand from your graveyard. This deals some damage to something, and this makes a couple tokens. So, obviously, some of these are better than others, right? Boseiju is the best. Adawara is second, Takenuma third on the chain. But these are just better basic lands in every single way. The fact that you could channel them, and they are modal, and you guys have heard me talk about these in past videos. I love the modal capability of cards. Another bonus is channel. When you channel something, you're not casting it. So these are uncounterable removal spells. They're uncounterable recursion spells, uncounterable damage spells. So the modal capability on top of just not being able to respond to it makes these super strong. I've slotted Beseiju into a bunch of different decks, Adawara in a bunch of different decks, Takenuma. And even if we go down to the ones that aren't as good, Iganjo and Sokenzan, I mean, these are just better mountains and plains, right? So why wouldn't you just play this? If you're playing a mono red deck, you should probably play this card just because it can be relevant at some point in time. If you're playing a white and a black deck, you should probably just play the Iganjo just because it's better than a plains. You'll probably use the effect 1 out of every 50 games, but you know that 50th game, and you need to deal some damage to something, it's there. These are just better than basics in almost every way, and they have that modal capability. And for me, these are a top-notch pick, and these are probably the best picks at the moment. You can get an extended art Beseiju for $25, $24 you can get a regular one. Adawara coming in at as low as $7. Takenuma coming in for $5. I mean, you know, these are priceless to have. And again, falling into the same category as some of the other cards is they are kind of tied to the plane. We've seen the old Kamigawa lands, very difficult to reprint. I think one of them just got reprinted in a commander deck. So that was cool to see, but they're hard because they are tied to the plane thematically. So they have to find a way to be creative with reprinting these, which makes it tough. So these are very good buys all the way around. I have numerous copies of each of these just because they are slam dunks across the board, and I really like the modal capability. I could talk about these cards all day, but I won't. I'll spare you. So we've gone through our 10-10 cards of the month of December, but I always want to include like a bonus 11th category, something a little blingy or a little flashy or just something different. And we are going to talk about this episode, the Infinity Shocklands. So I have bought these. I did not buy the Galaxy Foil ones just because they're just a little extra for me. I enjoyed the artwork, but I didn't want to spend, like $12-ish, $100 to get them all on foil. But I did buy the base copies, the borderless copies as well. But if you're somebody who doesn't have a set of Shocklands, or you have a little extra cash and you would like a little flair to your Shocklands, these are awesome. Are they the best bang for your buck if you need a Shockland? If you just need a Steam Vents, I probably wouldn't buy this. If you just need a breeding pool, I probably wouldn't buy this. These are if you want to kind of level up, so to speak, add a little bling to your favorite deck. Maybe you have a 5-color deck and you want to just showcase all these in one deck. This is kind of the place to be. I just think these are cool because they have some different artwork. We haven't really seen a ton as far as borderless Shocklands go. I think they were borderless in some sort of expedition treatment, but these are really interesting. They're kind of that intergalactic artwork, so I don't see them being reprinted anytime in the near future. Even if they did, it wouldn't drive the price down terribly because at the end of the day, a Shockland's a Shockland, and they're always usable. But I just love the artwork. I think they're great. This Stomping Ground looks fantastic. This kind of, old beaten down, spacecraft with all this, roughage kind of growing in, this really cool temple garden. I just love the artwork. And I think if you're somebody who has some Shocklands and you have that special deck that you want to take to the next level, this is where it's at. But that is it as far as our buy guide for December. Make sure you guys subscribe, you comment on the video, and keep an eye out for January's buy guide as well. I'm going to try to throw in a couple deck profiles over the next couple weeks. Again, if you're subscribed, if you comment, even if you watch the video, I appreciate it so much. It means a lot to me. I was looking at some analytics actually, and 95% of people who watch my videos are not subscribed. So if you're part of that 95% watching that didn't hit the subscribe button, do me a favor, hit the button and you can get up to date on all my videos. Again, if you liked any of the cards we talked about today or anything in the future, be sure to bookmark that link and use that link going forward on anything. But that is it. Again, happy holidays to everybody. I appreciate you stopping in, and have a good one.